Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. Some people in the chat right now are just seeing me do take two. I tried to do the intro, totally screwed it up. Here we are. Justin, we got ourselves a mailbag voicemail episode. So I'm going to hit on the big topics. After a loss, we don't have, 30 questions, mailbag questions and voicemails to go through. So it's a little less stressful this episode. Where last week I had to use like three sheets of paper to put the rundown on. Now it's a half and very spaced out well. Justin, what's going on, man?
Weird energy around this week. We put out some YouTube videos this week. A lot of YouTube videos really centered all around the offense, and I think we've done a good job dissecting it. And then going to Mailbag, where Bobby, for the last month, for literally the entire month of November, we were winners. And our Wednesday episodes were, how are we going to fit everything in? But we're also going to have a crap load of fun. Weird energy surrounding the vibe of this episode right now. I'm doing well. I'm excited to have a little time off from work and to finish off the season strong for the Giants. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, we haven't had a mailbag episode where we're talking about a loss in 40 days. So I'm doing all right. We've hit on Garrett a lot, so we're not going to talk about Garrett a lot today because if you don't know where we stand on that right now, you haven't been paying attention. I just doubt this is someone's first time listening to our podcast. So I'm doing all right. What do you think about before we, I know this isn't a preview episode and it's not a question, but are you gaining confidence back and we're going to beat the freaking Browns?
No.
Me?
No, because Bobby, it always rested on the offense's ability to move the ball down the field. And it always rested on if Daniel Jones was able to conquer the offense. And that's kind of, we even use that phrase, even stemming back to Monday's show. But unless we can see that the offense is starting to consistently move the ball, explosive plays, putting more points on the board, no. You always
we could
feel
keep the
confident
Browns
with Joe
into
Judge.
Ravens to a combined 20 points. How about that?
You always feel confident with Joe Judge. I don't just feel just not hopeful, and I do want to watch the football game. I'm looking forward to watching the football game, and that's not like last year where December 15th, 2019, we were both on FaceTime today, reflecting on, 1 year ago today, it was Eli Manning's last game ever, and it was his last home game. And at that point in the season, and specifically the content season, Bobby and I, we were doing both different shows, but we were just done. We were so done talking about the team. We were so done just watching it. Eli was the best part of the way to end that season. So
at this point last year, we were on a 9-game losing streak. That was so brutal. And the 9th game was on a Monday Night Football where Eli returns. They take the lead and they blow it in overtime. My gosh, that was brutal. So before we get into mailbag and stuff, this episode was brought to you by Jonathan Binder. How do you spell that? Real quick, the last name, Binder.
Well, I would think it's 2 Y's. I'm going with 2 Y's. Bind.
Binder, Bynder. Maybe it's Bender. I had a friend named Bender, and then there's Bender from the Futurama. Danny Lefty.
Wow.
I think that's his real name. Last name is Lefty.
I hope so.
Paul Ross. My lawyer's name is Paul Bross. How about that?
Are we both not fans of the TV show Better Call Saul? We discussed this.
Yeah, we already did this. You got people mad. We won't do it again.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
My lawyer's name is Paul Bross. His dad was just running for mayor. Or no, he was running for judge.
Wow, that's big.
And then Brandon Domgalski. Domgalski. What's going on, Brandon? Who are these sons of guns, Justin?
Wow. We are a gun violence podcast. Very interesting and fun names this week. So I appreciate all these wonderful people that went to patreon.com/talkinggiants. I always say /, and I think that's wrong.
It's just unnecessary, even if it's right. It's stupid.
I like saying back now, and now I can't even say it. So now it's in my brain. Patreon.com/Talking Giants. Doesn't feel right. And you go and you'd give us $2 a month to just support us, but also you get some behind the scenes things, like you get a free magnet from Bob. Well, technically it's not free. You get a magnet from Bobby. You get entered into shirt raffles 2 times a month, and you get to watch the shows as we record them, so you don't have to wait until they released on the podcast apps. Bobby, we got some mailbag questions. We got some voicemail questions.
Yeah, let's send it to our good friend who he's been a little bit in the news because they're going to be doing a playoff game on Nickelodeon. So that's interesting.
Wait,
But
I have
anyways,
something interesting about that. I have something interesting. You know how I was watching the commercial for it, the video that the NFL Update account put out?
I hate that account.
Yeah, but yeah.
They just steal everybody's work.
Right, but the video that he put out, don't know where it came from, which again, that's bad on me for not knowing exactly where that came from, and that's the first place that I saw it. But I saw that there was a split second where they were showing like Legos. They almost looked like Legos, and it was like Patrick Mahomes running with the ball. What I think they're going to do, I think they're using NFL Next Gen player tracking data to create those like holographic graphics of the actual like replay of a certain play. They're using the player dots for NFL Next Gen stats, and then they're going to create them into Legos. That's my theory. I think it makes sense, and I'm kind of excited for that one thing.
I want to watch Nick at Night. All right, take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
All right, thanks, Steve from Blue's Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
First things first, we have a voicemail from Liam about Daniel Jones.
Hey guys, it's Liam calling from Chesterfield, New Jersey. Not really a question, but I just wanted to talk about the Giants fans that are all high on Daniel Jones one week, and then the next week they're saying he's not the guy. I just don't know how you guys, or how Giants fans could say that he's not the guy after just 2 years with not an offense that's built around him. Think about this. Saquon Barkley, his best offensive player on the team, is out for the year. Darius Slayton is not a number one wide receiver, so we still need to get a number one wide receiver for him. So he doesn't really have that guy. And then our receiver that creates the most separation, in Evan Ingram, has more drops than he has games played. So, like his best receiver, his receiver that is
sounds really bad the way he's saying it.
Can't even catch the ball. And then, most importantly, this offensive system is like the worst possible offensive system for a quarterback like him and his play style. Like, I'm just not big on Jason Garrett. And I just think if we do these things, improve, get a number one wide receiver, get Saquon back healthy, hire a new offensive coordinator next year to get an offensive system where he's most comfortable in, and maybe even build that O-line in the draft, the mid-rounds of the draft. He'll improve. I think he could improve. And I just don't think that people should give up on him when he hasn't been given a fair chance. I know you guys are big Jones supporters or think the same thing, like that he should be given an opportunity. So I just wanted to let you know I'm like on board with that, and I think you're right. You know, can't doubt him out before he hasn't even given the right opportunity. So that's good.
All right, thank you, Liam, for calling. The thing messed up. Thank you, Liam, for calling in.
Well, Liam, when you put it that way, you really listed it out there.
There's a few sides to this. He's right when he talks about, 1 week the guy's good, 1 week, look at things from a whole. Now, that being said, a lot of what Liam's saying, people would use like, okay, so he needs a perfect wide receiver, a perfect offensive line, a perfect scheme to succeed. And that would be the point against Daniel Jones, and it's a fair and valid point. Here's where I'm at with Jones, because Jones wasn't like, because we were very anti-Garrett on, we have been, but that wasn't excusing Jones from this past game. He had bad moments in this past game. Our issue has always been that with Jason Garrett, that unless you're converting every single downfield concept, because it's very few and far between. And every wrong read just gets shown worse because it's an offense where you have to be perfect. You have to execute it at the right time, right? Like you got to be perfect. And that's always been our thing, or at least my thing is I don't need everything to be perfect around him. Hell, I was not even using offensive line as an excuse to start the season, even though he was the most pressured and most blitz and most sacked QB to start. And he's still probably right around the top 3 right now. I don't use that as an excuse, even in some of the bad games. The receivers, their talent level, I don't use that as an excuse. Yeah, the separation isn't good. And he could a number 1 wide receiver would help him a lot. But my main thing is this system is not who he is. And I thought Dan Duggan, who I think is more fair than anybody on the beat, said it perfectly. He said, you would have liked to see them do what the Bills did with Josh Allen and just played through his struggles, played to what he does well, instead of playing afraid and coaching afraid of that. That is what they have coached him because of the turnovers in his rookie year. They have coached afraid of those turnovers, trying to squeak out every game with defense. And to me, that is a very, penny rich, dollar poor mindset. Because right now I have a big fat I don't know about Daniel Jones. I loved his rookie year. I wanted to see him build on it. I wanted to see him build in a similar system where he was reading from deep to short, but getting to the check down quicker when it's there. Fixing the fumbles. But they've totally changed it all, and it's just this isn't who he is. So even if they moved on from him this year, which they probably won't, it would suck because it's like we didn't see who he is. I have not seen who Daniel Jones is because this offense is not an offense of an offensive coordinator who likes Daniel Jones. And it makes me worry that maybe Joe Judge, Jason Garrett don't like Daniel Jones. They don't want Daniel Jones to be the future guy, which I guess could be damning on him. But I am a guy who does like him. And it pains me to watch him play in this. This is not what he does. I really do. I feel so bad for the guy that he has to play through this. And to me, I haven't learned anything about him in year 2. I haven't.
Yeah.
The turnovers have went down, but when he does throw deep, he's literally the best in the NFL. Literally. But they don't do it. And in a game like this last Sunday, where they do it 4 times, he only converts 1, which isn't crazy. It looks like they didn't have any big plays because they were only, instead of converting 3 out of 4 like they've been doing, it's 1 out of 4. Instead of maybe throwing in 4 or 5 more of those, like Pat Shurmur did, where sometimes it was 10 times more. And it was like, okay, yeah, there's some bad stuff, but let him work on the bad stuff. You don't think this kid's smart enough to fix the bad stuff? I think he is, man. And that's what's frustrating. Because I feel like I don't know. I haven't learned anything about him in year 2. I really haven't. Yeah, he's gotten better at the fumbles, even though we just saw a 3 fumble game. He's gotten better at the fumbles. The interceptions are down. But honestly, the interceptions are down is because he's hesitant in this offense. This quick concept, he has become hesitant, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit for being hesitant in this offense because when he wasn't in the beginning of the season, it led to turnovers. It led to popping the ball up in the air. I showed a play on Twitter today where it's like, this play is going to get intercepted. We do it every single week, man, and I wasn't even planning on doing this rant, but the more I talk about it, I get so frustrated that I haven't learned a single thing about Daniel Jones in year 2. Not a single thing, and it's just frustrating. This isn't who he is. Throwing 8 touchdowns in 12 games. That's unreal. Andy Dalton has more than him. Dak Prescott in 4.5 games has more than him. That's unreal how low that number is from a guy who was on pace to set the rookie record. You look at Justin Herbert and his 12 games or however many, it's basically the same as Daniel Jones. And people are talking about how Justin Herbert's the best rookie ever. And we've just seen it. This is not who he is. And it is so frustrating. I haven't learned anything about him in year 2.
The main critique that was coming out of the anti-Daniel Jones camp in year 1, outside of the turnovers, was, this is at least in my opinion from the perspective of someone who likes to look at numbers and then respects other people who looks at numbers. It wasn't his intermediate accuracy. It was actually his deep ball accuracy. He produced in the deep ball game last year, but there were some things that were still to be desired in terms of Daniel Jones throwing the ball deep, especially when he's throwing it towards the sidelines. Bobby, for the large part of the second half of this year, when the Giants started winning games, in the rare times that the Giants have thrown the ball down the field, he's produced and he's been totally accurate. And it's been, whether it's a Darius Slayton drop or, just a dive of a fingertip short, he's been accurate. He has been extremely accurate when throwing the deep ball. His main critique coming out of the draft was the lack of arm talent, and he has, frankly, the one thing that we have learned this year is that Daniel Jones can throw the deep ball with some sort of consistency. And the whole thing is that you want to see it more. He can be accurate when throwing the deep ball. That's the one thing we have learned when, frankly, that was the second biggest critique of his after his rookie season, right behind the turnovers, which naturally you would hope turnovers from rookie quarterbacks, those things are going to be things that naturally improve unless you're reckless like Jameis Winston, where I don't think Daniel Jones is as reckless as Jameis Winston.
No.
However, this Jason Garrett offense, because there's nothing open, he has to be sometimes reckless and force the ball into areas, hold the ball for long periods of time because there's just nothing available. And you saw that against Arizona.
It's reckless in low risk situations.
Yeah.
I remember after the Pittsburgh game, well, I said that interception on the long drive. I said I don't mind that because without his mindset, they don't get down the field. And I remember after that first Steelers game being like, I actually liked the game plan. I thought they needed to get the ball out quick against the Steelers team because of, the edge rushers of Watt and Dupree. And I was like, now that I remember saying after, like, that's a one-game game plan. Now let's go back to the way things used to be. And it's, I just spent 20 minutes basically ranting, but I just feel like I haven't learned anything about him.
I would agree. And it stinks because, year 2 and year 3 are supposed to be the big jump years, and especially when you want to maximize the rookie deal, quarterbacks are not making it onto their 5th year of their rookie deal anymore. They're signing their long-term contracts after 4 years. So if you draft a quarterback in the first round, sometimes you don't even have the luxury of that extra 5th year team option when you draft a quarterback in the first round. So it's just a shame. It's a shame that I don't want to say this year's a wasted year because it's not, because you have Joe Judge and there's a lot of good things that are happening here. But in terms of the offense's development, and I'm not saying this year is a wasted year because you don't have Saquon Barkley, not saying that this year is a wasted year because maybe Darius Slayton is hurt and he didn't take the step up that we thought. Golden Tate has taken a step down as a wide receiver. Evan Ingram is not who we wanted him to be when he's healthy. Sure, that's not the reason why. It is because the scheme is not, and who knows, Evan Ingram could be a much better football player if he is in a scheme that he was.
He was. I was fine with the way
healthy.
Pat Shermer used him. I never once complained about the way Pat Shermer used, but I don't want to go back into the.
No, we won't go back.
I don't want to do the, it's a weird dynamic because I like Joe Judge, but I hate Jason Garrett.
Right. But long story short, I think your point of tell us the things that we learned about Daniel Jones in 2020. And obviously a lot of people will say, well, he still fumbles the ball and he still throws interceptions. Well, we told you why some of those fumbles happen. We told you why some of those interceptions have happened. We've shown the film. And even if you're just listening to us on the podcast, we're trying to break down the situations in which those interceptions happen the best that we can. It's not just his mental errors and him, forcing the ball when it doesn't need to be forced in there. He's forcing the ball into a tight space because that's what the scheme is telling him to do. So long story short, what did you learn about Daniel Jones in 2020? And I think, Bobby, you said it perfectly. We've learned very little, and that stinks.
Yeah. Where it was supposed to be a year, it's like, hey, with the aggression, can he learn when to check it down? And I thought he did a pretty good job towards the end of last season of doing that. And I think that was why you saw Caden Smith kind of like the reason why we had a very positive view of Caden Smith going into this year, Justin, was more because of Daniel Jones working back in the middle of the field. And, obviously there were some shots taken with Caden, but not a lot. It was a lot of and coming back to him and going through his progressions. All right, let's move on though.
Hey, Talking Giants, it's Eric in Naples. The day after the game, decided I was too frustrated to call yesterday. I'm going to take a different platform here, and I just talk about how the Giants perform at home. I didn't look up the stats, but since we left the Meadowlands, we're still at Meadowlands, since the new stadium has been up, we don't play well at home. And, forget the COVID thing, but, we have another year where we don't win home games. I don't know what it is. I mean, we did put the white pants on yesterday, but it didn't seem to matter. But we don't win at home, and that's sad. We really just don't. I mean, look at a team like the Saints. They're such a tough out because they win 8 games at home every year. So I don't know how we get that magic back we used to have, but we just don't win at home. And Jason Garrett's got to go. We all know that. Daniel Jones, I'm going to give him a pass, but he was awful. And I'd like you to talk about, I asked you a question after your last video after the game. Did they expose something in Patrick Graham's defense? Why were there so many passes, 6-7 yards off the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field, wide open the entire game? Is that a lack of a pass rush, or is that a different type of scheme where our linebackers are doing something wrong? Because we've been good in coverage, but we were awful. And I know we bend, not break, but this game hurt. This game feels like it could be the end of the season. But we'll move ahead onto the Browns. Thanks, guys.
You can hear the sorrow in Eric's voice. He's really
Usually we're hearing a nice victory.
And he's telling us how he's flirting with girls at the sports bar. So it's a tough scene for Eric this week. He usually calls on a Sunday. This was Monday, Eric, not Sunday, Eric.
I know. I like Sunday Eric a lot better. I'm just being honest with you, Eric. So the home field thing, we lose everywhere. So I think that, to me, that answers that question.
Well,
or
also,
if you're another Giants podcast, the stadium's way too damn gray.
Well, I also believe that, but I don't say it as much as they do.
But it's why they lose 2 years in a row. They started 0-2, lost to the Saints in 2008.
I will say, with the whole gray point, the stadium lacks character. And is it because the stadium's gray? If there's one thing that, nothing. If there's one thing that MetLife lacks, it's character, it's grit, and that's what the old Giants stadium had. I don't know. Maybe it's just the legacy of millions of fights that happened. So I don't know, but. Ben Baldwin, somebody who Bobby doesn't like, but I do. Ben Baldwin recently put out a little graphic about the home field advantage and how it's dwindling in the NFL. This year, it's very much dwindling. Now, simply because I think this year home field advantage is very non-existent because the majority of the stadiums do not have NFL fans in them. But even in 2019, there were similar trends and numbers about away teams winning in opposing stadiums. So that was even the case last year when there was fans in the stadium, where it usually fluctuated in years past with mainly home teams were winning games. 2019, it was basically almost 50-50. And then definitely in 2020, it is around 50-50 split. So that is something that Carl Banks and Bob Papa talk about on the radio all the time. All the time they talk about the Giants can't win at home. The Giants can't win at home. The Giants can't win at home. So if you value their opinions, they talk about it all the time. So it does stink, especially if you're a regular season ticket holder, because you pay a lot of money to see the team win.
With the defense, really, I think it's a lack of a pass rush, a lack of a true pass rush led to other things because we're playing a guy like Kyler who runs so often.
Yeah.
And you saw Kyler wasn't breaking off big runs, but they were worried about Kyler taking off and running, which means linebackers can't really turn their zone coverage into man coverage on underneath routes. So it was a lot of just kind of, sitting in your zone and sitting and waiting. And they weren't able to get to Kyler quickly. Now, the defensive tackles, they looked hesitant because they were worried about him breaking contain and making a big play. But I actually think it somewhat worked, I get they scored 26 points, but they were put in so many bad situations.
Yeah, Bobby, how many offensive plays did the Cardinals run? They ran a lot.
And when they did, it seemed like every time they were starting at the 50-yard line. Yeah. So I don't think it was as bad as it looked. And the touchdown to Dan Arnold was basically they did a cover zero blitz and Logan Ryan got caught sneaking. Logan Ryan got caught peeking into the backfield, and they threw a touch, and Kyler threw a touchdown over his head, which we talked about on Monday is a perfect example of if it works, it's the greatest throw of all time.
Yeah. If
Logan Ryan doesn't screw up his coverage, it's an idiot throw, and you should have just kicked and scored 3 points. And it's the Daniel Jones Pittsburgh Steelers throw. That's what that throw was.
Yeah, except Kyler Murray's just a little bit more athletic, and you had a tight end who was a lot, bigger going up and getting that ball in the back of the end zone.
But I'm saying it's a similar like concept.
No, yes, yeah. So, there comes a point when a team is running 70 plays on offense. Bobby, a lot of people like to talk about, in the NFL, if you impose your will in the run game, you're gonna get an opposing defense worn down throughout the game. And while that's true, I also think even throwing the ball 50 times out of 70 times, that will wear a defense down eventually too. So I think that's what you saw. You saw a defense that was really worn down, and they were allowing the chunk plays in the second half. First half, they were not allowing those chunk plays when it was actually a football game and when it was a close game. But by the time it was, even the Giants, when they were trying to sniff an opportunity to get back in the game in the third quarter after that Golden Tate big play, and then who scored a touchdown for the Giants? Was it Morris?
Dion Lewis.
Dion Lewis. Oh, good for him.
I saw someone try to call themselves a Lewisite. I mean, speaking for Alfredite Nation, and I'm sure Golden Nation would say the same. Stop. Just stop it with that. But
mainly with the defense, you're gonna allow chunk plays if you're on the field for 70 plays in a given game. It's a tough spot to be. Also, the difference between this Kyler Murray-led Arizona offense and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is always constantly looking for opportunities 15, 20 plus yards down the field. And there were actually some throws where Russell Wilson missed in the intermediate part of the field. Guarantee you this week, it was a part of that game plan of, look at Russell Wilson. Look at how there was just nothing available for him down the field. Kyler, your main opportunity is going to be in the middle of the field and the intermediate part of the field. They're going to leave it open for you. Take advantage of it. And in the second half, that he did. So good for him.
Yeah, and like there was one play, like you said, over the middle of the field. It's like you get enough time, you'll find that hole in a zone. I don't think it's like, that's Patrick Graham. They found the hole in Patrick Graham. It's just honestly that if you get enough time, that hole is going to open up for any defense. So.
And you can't win with these running quarterbacks, Bob, because if you blitz them right and you bring that pressure, then what? They scramble away, and then you have less guys in coverage.
I would have liked some more blitzes, though, to be honest.
Yeah, the Giants, the problem with the Giants is that now they're really emphasizing their interior defensive linemen. So what those guys do is they collapse the pocket. They're not necessarily coming in, raining free, and causing a bunch of havoc with a mobile quarterback. But when you have a guy that can slither and slide and run around like a hamster, I call Kyler Murray the hamster. When you have a guy that can run around like a hamster back there, when you're prioritizing interior defensive linemen as pass rushers versus edge rushers, it's tough. So tough. All
right, next voicemail.
Hey, Bobby and Justin. It is Ben. I'm calling from London, England, in my bedroom. Nothing special, I'm afraid. Two quick questions for you. Firstly, and we all know he won't, but if Patrick Graham gets picked up as a head coach, could you guys see Matt Patricia coming to be the new DC? Do you reckon Joe Judge would bring him over to the Giants? And secondly, what is America's obsession with stats? You guys have stats for everything. Like over here, stats are just not really that important. But Americans love them. Let me know what you guys think. Go Big Blue. We'll bounce back. First Taste pod will be coming back soon. Cheers, guys.
Here's a stat. America beat England in the Revolutionary War by 30 points as a 30-point underdog. How about that for a stat? Freaking pissed me off from England.
Did he ask why America is so obsessed with stats?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm being obnoxious.
I think I give if Ben in London, I'm sure Ben in London is very familiar with American culture, because that's what us as Americans do. We just shove down our culture in everybody else's throats, whether they like it or not.
Because our games have nuance. It's not just goals and assists.
Wow. I would actually
I'm being really offended. I like soccer, but I'm just gonna answer this question as an obnoxious American. Here's a stat: back-to-back World War champs.
Wow. Didn't England help us?
Yeah, but it's like I said, I'm being an obnoxious American.
American. I would like to see the next gen player stats, or the player tracking data stats in soccer, like that. Imagine they have to track how much they run per game and their heartbeats.
They do. It's like so miles.
That's insane. Guarantee you they get more beats per minute in about a 30-second span than I get out of an entire 6 months of the way that I work out. So
I play JV soccer,
Wow. What were you couldn't be anything but the goalie.
I played defense.
Wow. You must have wrecked people.
I did. I used to play with my football cleats, and I would take the front because you can't have the front spikes. I would just I would unscrew the front spike, and I did, play. I played a little bit of goalie, but when I did, like at first, like I started at goalie in practice, and there was just someone who was better than me, but I would never drop kick it. For the most part, I would just curl hop the ball to wherever I wanted to go. Like I would never drop kick. I would always throw it. But I mean, it was fun. It was a sport I didn't care about. It was good conditioning in the off season. Like you said, I would just wreck people.
When? It's a fall sport.
No, soccer in Florida is a winter sport.
Wow. Well, I can imagine people would die. Like people would actually physically die if you played soccer during the summer.
I know. That's when I went to Minnesota. I was like, well, you guys are playing soccer now?
Because
and
it's
what
2
I realized,
degrees in Minnesota.
It's when I stopped playing basketball because I just got so sick. If you're not on a good coached basketball team and you're a center, it's just a point guard just dribbling around. Like your only points come off of offensive rebounds. You get like 2 post touches a game, and it's like you're doing all this. And I was just like, I'm over basketball. Like I'm over averaging, 11 and 8. I'm over it. And I'm over having to just get all my points from offensive rebounds. I'm over guards fighting with each other every week. I mean, it was dysfunctional. And my school did not allow you to play varsity basketball. If you played varsity basketball, you weren't allowed to play another sport.
You got a big ego over here.
So it was like I was never going to be able to play varsity basketball. I wouldn't have been. Our basketball team was real deal, top of the nation. My junior year, our point guard Ben Edlin went to Alabama. The year that he was supposed to go to VCU, and then Shaka Smart went to Alabama, followed him there. And then the shooting guard was the top scorer in Florida, best 3-point shooter in Florida, Kwame Osborne. The 3 went to Texas Southern, I think, which is D1. The 4 was Will Yeget, and I know we have some Florida Gators listeners. He was part of that last Final Four Gators team. He was the starting 4. And then the 5, Ty Armstrong, went to Alabama. And then like all the other guys like played at like other college schools. So I would have never played anyways.
Yeah, so Bobby, maybe there's a reason why they didn't use the center.
Yeah, but the JV team was dysfunctional regardless.
Oh. Yeah,
it was varsity or nothing. Like there was no like built like it was like when you came to that school, you either played varsity or you were never going to play varsity. Nobody moved up from JV to varsity at that school.
The guards wanted to be like the other guards. It's again, I'm using the word tough a lot. It's tough.
His name is Ralph. I mean, he was really good. His name is Ralph Williams, but he averaged like 30 points a game. And it was like
Ralph.
He was really good. So, I am the center complaining that the other guys are scoring, but it's annoying just having to get offensive boards all the damn time.
Yeah, you're a big ego guy. Come on. What do you have to say? Is Matt Patricia going to come to the Giants if there's a position that opens up?
I don't know. I don't. People have talked to me like at first I was like Matt Patricia could be a real candidate, and then people have gotten in my ear. I mean, like no, he was really never that good in New England. He was going off Bill's success, and I really am turned off by the stories that came out of Detroit on Matt Patricia.
Yeah, I am.
And this isn't like I want to do research on him before I say yes or no. So if Patrick Graham does, I'll do my research on everybody that's interviewed, but right now I would say no.
I would agree. Definitely feel like bringing on Patricia would almost be similar to bringing on James Betcher because he was successful with what's his face?
Todd Bowles.
Yeah, kind of similar vibe. Beggars can't be choosers, but has the same vibe to it. Paul Nonis asks a mailbag question. Paul Nonis is one of our smartest listeners, and he's also one of my favorites, I will say. Paul Nonis, do you think that the Cowboys or Eagles will also be in the division race come week 17 now that they are both coming off of wins? Bobby Skinner, I'll hand this off to you.
So I put it together. The Washington 6-7, we're 5-8, Eagles 4-8-1, Dallas 4-9. So for us to win the division, and let's play it like we're not going to beat the Browns and Ravens. Let's just say that. Let's not be Giants fans. Let's say we lose to the Browns and the Ravens, we beat the Cowboys. That would leave us at 1-2, ending up at 6-10. Washington would have to lose out. This could happen. 1, because of the teams they're playing. 2, they may be playing Dwayne Haskins.
Yep.
He sucks. Seattle this week, Carolina the following week. Carolina is probably a game they'll be favored in, but Carolina can beat them. And then the Eagles in week 17, you would have them to lose, and then we would be tied at 6-10.
Right, probably with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, so that's interesting with the Eagles. For the Eagles, they would have to lose this week versus Arizona. Dallas would have to beat the Eagles. Dallas would have to pull that out. And then the Eagles would have to beat Washington.
Okay.
And then Dallas.
Who did the Eagles play this week?
The Cardinals.
Okay.
The big one would be them losing. They would have to lose to Dallas and beat Washington.
Right.
And then Dallas would have to lose to the Niners, beat the Eagles, and lose to us week 17. And that puts us in Washington both at 6-10. And then the Eagles and the Cowboys would both be 5 wins. The Eagles with the tie, obviously. That's how we would win it by going by chalk for the rest of our schedule. But if we win 2 more games and get to 7-9, I think we'll win the division.
I think that's fair.
If we go 2-1, that means Washington goes 1-2. I think we'll win the division. So we got to steal one against Cleveland or Baltimore.
Yeah, I wish we were playing Baltimore this week with how iffy. I mean, Lamar Jackson. I mean, they looked fantastic last night. They put a whole bunch of points up on the board, but with how uncertain Lamar Jackson has been just health wise, I kind of want to play Baltimore this week.
Yeah, Lamar. People were just saying he pooped his pants, and there was no proof of that. Like, and I thought I had missed the story because everyone's just like, "Yep, he pooped," and then I went and looked. I was like, "This is not confirmed at all." And then
people
after
make inferences. People make inferences based off of the way that people run.
But it was spoken as fact. Like
hey,
I thought I had missed something.
Some people adamantly believe that that's a poop run. Like that's not a cramp run. That's clearly a poop is in the pants, poop is on the way run. And those people that gather that evidence and they spend their time investigating that, I kind of trust them.
All right. Attack the ankle. All right. Next, we have
a voicemail about Mara and then a mailbag from Jeff Boyd. So let's play that voicemail first.
Hey guys, it's Victor from Running PA again. I know I'm a little early, but post-day frustrations over the game. I think the Giants need to get rid of Jason Garrett. It was a terrible signing. I know that everyone blames Dave Gettleman for all of our troubles, but when are we going to hold the Mariners responsible for doing this to us? I mean, I feel like they kind of enable the bad out of Dave Gettleman, and also they were the ones who brought in Jason Garrett. I don't think that was a judge signing. I know you guys talked about that on the podcast before. I just think that the Mariners are getting too easy of a pass here when I feel like partially some of the things that have gone wrong this season are on them. What do you guys think?
I think Victor brings up a great point, and Jeff Boyd asks a similar question at the Boyd Wonder. There you go. When Garrett is ultimately relieved of his duties, do you think the Maris and Tisch families will intervene in the next hire? Man.
I do think I'm going to give my Maris speech. I don't hate the Maris. I just don't. I think they're willing to learn from their mistakes. They've got to be, right? They've like I've done the whole thing of like, do the timeline of it is you win, you get Jerry Reese, you win 2 Super Bowls with him and Tom. And then Tom, like you move on from Tom, but you keep Jerry. And you're like, well, if you won 2 Super Bowls with him, like I don't think they even wanted to move off from Tom really. But Tom, and that happens, and then you bring in Ben McAdoo, then you fire both of them, like you've clean house. Then you go in and you bring in Gettleman, maybe had some impact on the 2018 offseason. I don't think it's as much as people infer, but maybe they had an impact on that of giving Eli one last run. I will never blame them for being loyal to Eli. I'm sorry, I won't. I would rather them be loyal to Eli to a fault than be the Chargers and be an organization that everybody hates, where former players hate that organization. And then this past season, they did. I don't know. They screwed it up again. I don't know. I feel like they are willing to try and learn from their mistakes, though. Like I think John Mayer is a humble guy. He's loyal. His loyalty is his biggest fault.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're intertwining family and business, where you have Chris Mara, who's running most of the football operations. You have a lot of people that have been in the organization for a very, very long time, like since even like the George Young days, people that are in the organization for the Giants in like the front office. And you can argue that if you agree with that, which I don't know these people that are in the front office. There's not a lot on them. I mean, what you can do is you can evaluate the decisions that the organization makes. And ultimately, I'm of the opinion where the Giants need to find somebody. And if that guy is Joe Judge to get this started, then great. The Giants need to find somebody where the football people can run the football side of things. And John Mara can be an owner. Because it is clear. It is absolutely clear, in my opinion, when Mara makes the decision to bench Eli Manning, he signs off on it. He cowards because of the fan reaction, brings him back, and then ultimately goes away from any kind of plan of rebuilding to give him one more shot at it. I think that is an ownership decision. And not interviewing anybody outside the building. I think all of these certain things are Mara decisions. And the Victor referred back to this, a conversation that we had with Jason Garrett, why we think that is a Mara hire. It's because Jason Garrett has been linked back to the Giants since 2014. And I believe 2014, 2015, that is when Jason Garrett signed his latest extension with the Cowboys to be their head coach, when Jason Garrett's job has technically been on the line for half a decade as a head coach with Dallas. And he's been linked to the Giants since 2014, since that shutout that we had in Jacksonville, where Tom Coughlin absolutely just got embarrassed and the Giants just got embarrassed. So, Mara's fingerprints are on the organization. You can't fully say definitively, but his fingers are on the organization and not in a good way.
The hope and the realistic hope is like, hey, he sees what Joe Judge with Patrick Graham said. Joe Judge, go get your offensive coordinator.
Correct. That's the long story short. That is the.
And
hope.
I think he will do that. I do think if they move on from Garrett, I think that is 100% what they will do. Like, I don't think that's me trying to be an overly optimistic fan. I just think they'll see what happened and they'll like, hey, Joe Judge, the same way he did with Patrick Graham. And it's interesting. We found it kind of interesting when Patrick Graham was named the assistant head coach and not Jason Garrett. And then I remember one person said, this Jason Garrett hire, it's so important because if Joe Judge gets COVID, Jason Garrett could be the head coach.
Oh,
Remember,
yeah, that was
the
take. That was the take. Yeah, but I also
it's like, he's not even the assistant head coach. What are you talking about?
I also don't think, we were talking about this last show, and I posed a question to you, Bobby, about, are we afraid that, let's just say Joe Judge does get free reign of hire of who he wants as offense coordinator? Are we worried that he would bring in somebody like Garrett, where very ultra conservative and, pound the rock, blah, 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 blah. I know you're not really concerned about pure rushing attempts, and I'm not either, because if you have the lead in a football game, I don't care what you do. Run the ball 50 times if you have the lead in a football game. I would love that. But nevertheless, if Patrick Graham is Joe Judge's guy, and Patrick Graham really does play and scheme defense in a way that very much does reflect the NFL today, where it's keeping everything in front of you. It's not allowing deep, explosive passing plays. We're not putting, we're not putting 7 guys, 8 guys in the box at one time to stop the run. We're not. We're relying on our big guys up front to stop the run. And then everybody else is playing back. And I don't think Dave Gettleman is also, and I know some people are going to maybe get a little mad at this with me as well. And I don't think Dave Gettleman is a complete dummy when it comes to positional value. I think since the 2018 draft and since taking Saquon, a lot of his picks have been understanding positional value. This includes taking the quarterback at 6, when that was even debated. Should the Giants even take a quarterback because they had Eli Manning? And even taking a cornerback in the 2019 draft. It didn't work out, but prioritizing secondary, signing secondary guys, getting guys on this football team that can play secondary in the NFL, and getting a decent amount of depth, that's also been Dave Gettleman, and that is very forward thinking. So I'd like to think that if Gettleman and Judge had their choice without any input from Mara on the offensive side of the ball of who they would want to bring in, that it would be good. That is what I would like to think.
Yeah. Although Joe Judge, my big worry is that Joe Judge has way more of an impact on this offense. You said on Monday than we realize. That's my worry. Now, there's reasons why I don't fully believe that.
Yeah,
but it is a worry in the back of my mind.
Tom Brady. Let's also remember that there's a reason why Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. And yes, Tom Brady is very, very good, but also it's because Tom Brady throws the ball. Tom Brady's not a guy that's going to hand off the ball 35 times a game in New England. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time because he's a very good thrower of the ball. And that is where Joe Judge comes from. And hopefully he sees that is also a recipe for success. Like allowing
and this isn't even the Tom Brady, when people say Tom Brady's system QB, like they went through so many different systems in New England, depending on their personnel. I mean, think about the 07 year. But that's my thing, which is like, with the Mike Silver thing saying like, there's this error that they're doing it the way Tom Brady did. Well, we get no yak. And people's big thing on Tom Brady is like, oh, he just throws these quick passes and there's a million yards of yak. Well, we don't have any of that. So that's my saving grace, is that this isn't what we're running right now, isn't what the Patriots run. It's just not. So,
all right. So coming up next, we have something from Tauzino at Red Yeti 9. Great YouTube breakdown, Justin Pennick. Good job spreading awareness, responding, Garrett. And here's his question. Why do most in the fan base and appear blind to his deficiencies? I'm guessing this is Jason Garrett. Why are the Giants beat writers not interrogating Judge about Garrett's performance specifically? Thanks. We'll hang up and listen. Like how we included that, even though it was a mailbag question. And then the second question is from Eli Wortman at Eli Wortman. I don't know anything when let me start this over. I don't know anything when it becomes to behind the scenes stuff. I don't know anything when it comes to behind the scenes stuff, but is there a way that we can have a different play designer? I don't hate when and where Garrett chooses to run or pass, but these route concepts are friggin' terrible.
So I think the biggest thing for anyone who's like, hey, I think we should keep Garrett, is simply they want to keep him for continuity. We've made the argument why that doesn't make any sense to me. And if you wanted continuity, I better have hoped I heard you talking about Pat Shurmur staying. Yeah, it's just, and we do this we are way more into this than 99.9% of people. Like, we spend way too much time on this team, breaking down this team. And I think, and some people have patience, and I am one of those. I am. I'm a patient person when it comes to developing. My thing is I got to see something in you to be patient for, where with Garrett, I just don't see it.
Yeah, and I think getting to Tauzino's question in terms of why aren't beat reporters asking questions, I think Zach Rosenblatt did a good job today. He wrote a really good article, and I'm not just saying that he wrote a really good article because he included some data that I dug up from NFL Next Gen Stats, which thank you for shouting me out in that, Zach. But why don't I think they ask? It's largely because, Bobby, I don't even know if I would ask Joe Judge or Jason Garrett, like, hey, why aren't you throwing the ball down the field more? I don't even know if I would ask that if I had like the opportunity to talk down with them face to face. Maybe
they don't answer it. They don't. Rosenblatt asked it early in the year, like, Jones, he's throwing down the least, throwing deep shots the least in the NFL, and he's like, yeah, they just non-answer. They don't answer the question.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's like they don't want to waste their time getting non-answers, and they want to get some stuff where they can try and infer on for their articles,
Right. So I think
that's why I never would want to be I'd never want to be a part of those. I would never want to be a part of those, because like, why am I going to ask you all these questions to not get any information? Right. I just rather just go figure out the information on my own. Because
unfortunately, right now, when you're seeing some of our good friend at the Post, I think that's where he writes. No, the Daily News. I'm sorry. We're seeing our good friend at the Daily News who is choosing to prioritize talking about Daniel Jones's injury, and
you could say Pat Leonard. We can blatantly say that he sucks. It's okay.
And also choosing to talk about the Chase Young Bowl as ways to get clicks. Which, you want to know what? Good for him. Good for him. These beat reporters. They're Zach Rosenblatt makes an intentional choice to communicate, talk, and be with the fans of Giants Twitter. He makes that intentional choice. Other people choose to intentionally be hated because it gets them more clicks. So good for them. Good for them. That's also why, because they would rather write about that. They would rather write about why Daniel Jones should not have played, and that was the reason why we lost against the Cardinals, rather than anything that's substantially important with this football team. So there you go. Bobby, I believe we have a voicemail from Gordy, our friend of the program.
Play the dang voicemail, Bobby.
Yeah, come on, Bobby.
Hi, guys. This is Gordy. I'm at the mall in Oneonta in my car. So, it was a horrible game yesterday, and I felt horrible all last night, this morning. And then I listened to your guys' podcast, and I felt better. I just did. I don't know why, but I did. So, I'm curious. How do you guys feel better after a horrible loss, like horrible day like that? All right. Be well.
And then Gordy called back and he said,
Sorry, guys. It's Gordy again. I realize we're in the middle of a pandemic, and who am I to be so upset by a football game? Although I am. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Gordy is like the nicest person in the world. To me,
He really is.
he's a nice human being. He's just a nice person, like a pleasant person to be around, where he's like, oh, man, I wasn't feeling good. And then he calls back and says, like, hey, like, who am I to be upset about a football game when there's a pandemic going on? Gordy is the man. I really do like Gordy.
But Bobby, what do you do when you have a bad day? What is the thing that you do? Maybe not even to like make it better, but some people like my friend Snacks. I think some of you might be familiar with him. He's a masochist. So if he has a bad day, we're unfortunately friends with him. If he has a bad day, he's just going to do things that make him experience more pain. So if he has a bad day, what he's going to do, he is going to order a crap ton of Dominoes, and he will just eat himself into a bloated coma and he gets agita. He gets like heart pain, and he will do that, and he will continue to suffer. So what are some things that you do if you have a bad day? I have my answer.
Well, when it's Giants induced and we have to record after this, I will say, and this is going to sound like sucking up, but me and you, Justin, have said to each other, having the Patreon chat there for you with the episode is very comforting. Because it's like, okay, here's the people who know us. They like us. They understand us. They think our jokes are funny. They're not going to, if they disagree with us, they're not going to call us morons. Like, I really do think that has helped. So Giants induced wise.
Wow.
Regular stuff, life stuff. I just like to go sit by the water. I know that sounds super corny. Like both my answers are super corny and cheesy. It
sounds super hippie. Yeah.
I just like to go listen to music and go sit by the, whether it's the ocean, the river, a lake or whatever. I know that sounds so corny, but it's true. That's what I like to do.
I am an emotional eater. Surprise. I've been getting a lot of Periscope and YouTube comments about body shaming. It's been really fun.
That's why we're going to go on a weight loss challenge this offseason.
Yeah, well,
it really is just for me. I need competition to be like, I have to beat Justin in this.
Well,
to be motivated.
Well, we can be competitive in other things, but that is the part of my life where I'm least competitive right now. Competitive eating we can do. But I'm an emotional eater, so especially when the Giants lose, like if I go to a Giants game, for example, and it doesn't matter if I'm driving, doesn't matter if I'm not driving, I will have a sub in one hand. Whoever is in my passenger seat, if I'm driving, they will be having, I always bring cookies, and that's the ShopRite cookies, like the soft cookies, not like the hard Chips Ahoy or anything like that. No, I like them soft. It's actually funny. They're not soft if they've been in the cold car all day, but I do like the coldness of the cookie. So my friend is sitting with the cookies open. I have a sub in the wrap in one hand, and I'm just stuffing my face as I'm trying not to run over glass or run over human beings as I'm navigating, getting out of the MetLife parking lot. If we win, I don't eat a thing. I do not eat a cookie. I do not eat a leftover sub, nothing. But if we lose, it's terrible. I feel bad for people that go to games with me. On a normal day, man, what do? I like to bowl. I haven't been bowling in a long time though, but I usually I'm a big bowling fan. I don't know if you ever knew that about me.
I
No,
knew
you
you
did.
were like a state champion bowling or something.
Yes, I am in high school. I won a state championship in bowling, but yeah, I haven't gone in a long time though. I need to
See,
go.
bowling to me is like the opposite of relaxing. It's like, let's get rowdy and do something stupid. You know, let's throw the ball overhand.
Well, I think if you had a bad day, because bowling is it's almost like golf. Almost. I know a lot of golf fans are going
Golf
to get
pisses me
offended.
off
Golf
because I
people are
hate
going to get
golf
offended.
people.
Well, okay. Well, bowling people, I think you would like better because it's a lot simpler. There's less movement involved, but I think the same overall focus is there because you need to adjust to the lane. You need to adjust to, how your arms feeling that day, how your swings feeling that day. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of nuance and everything. Numbers, stupid numbers.
Stupid American. All right, next question.
What's up, Talking Giants? It's Joe Moyle from Hoboken, New Jersey. Trying to ask you guys something different because I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions about Jones and Garrett. And as you should. This offense is pathetic. Got to fire Garrett. We should have never hired him. It's not our talent. Our offensive scheme sucks. It sucked all year. All right, number one, Wayne Gallman is our most explosive player. I'm not happy to say that. But why is he being spelled for Alfred Morris late in the game, crucial times in the game, outside the red zone? It does not make any sense. Our most explosive player should be on the field. Number two, isn't it nice that no one is talking about our cornerback 2 position? Isaac Yadam, 2 catches on 3 targets, 15 yards. I'll hang up and listen.
I disagree with Joe. I love, and this isn't me trying to be funny about Gallmanites and Alfredites. I think the way they spell them is perfect. I mean, Alfred Morris is averaging more yards per carry than Wayne Gallman. And I think they are doing it 100% perfectly. And I don't think Wayne Gallman's our most explosive player. I don't think he's even close. I think Slayton, Shepard, Tate, and Ingram are more explosive than Gallman. Gallman is, to me, is just not that dynamic. Like there will be zero priority to me to bring back Gallman with Saquon as a starting running back. How many times like, if he just breaks this one tackle, he's gone. Well, that's the difference between him and Saquon.
Well, it's a combination of, and we will never know this. At least we will never know this until next year. If the offensive line is the same, and if the performance of the offensive line is the same, but Gallman is just efficient, and that's why I like him.
Yes.
And as someone who doesn't value the running game a ton, as a fan, I don't really value it a ton. If you just get me 4 or 5 yards of carry, I'm not going to expect you to burst those 20, 30, 40-yard runs every game. Like Saquon, I think you have an expectation that Saquon Barkley is going to have at least one rushing play of 20-plus yards. I think that is a fair expectation to come from him.
Yes.
I guess why I like Wayne Gallman is because I don't expect a lot from him, but then he gives me a lot more. And I expect a lot from Saquon Barkley, and besides 2018, he really hasn't really given me that much. I guess that's why I like him, but Saquon Barkley is ultimately just a better football player. We'll see next year. We'll see next year if the whole dancing behind the line of scrimmage thing and constantly looking for the big play, we'll see if that's actually a thing, because I think in 2020 or 2021, it'll be one of the first times where Saquon Barkley has a hopefully functioning, capable offensive line that maybe they can even make some improvements and some other shifts around this offseason. So, Bobby, any other comments on that before we get to our final question?
No, not really. I mean, I like what Gallman's doing, but Gallman will never be a number 2. Like to me, he doesn't fit with, like, that was always my issue with Gallman, and kind of why I wanted to cut him was like everyone says, he needs to get some more carries, to be effective. Like, well, he's never going to get those with Saquon.
Right
Now that he's in this role, he's all right. He's effective. He's efficient, but he's never going to get those carries with Saquon Barkley as the starting running back. And I don't think you can like bring someone like if you have Saquon on a team, I don't think you can invest in a backup plan to Saquon Barkley.
There's sometimes people that complain when Saquon Barkley gets like 16 carries in a game that he should have gotten more. So do you want to sign Wayne Gallman for a multi-million-dollar deal this offseason and then have Wayne Gallman get at minimum 5 carries a game, and then you're going to get mad at the end of a game that he was taking carries away from Saquon Barkley and that Saquon Barkley didn't get enough carries? Which, by the way, Saquon Barkley, I believe his average carries per game, even on a team where we were losing most of our games, he was still I think he was around 13 to 15 carries a game, which that's a good amount for a running back, like averaging carries per game. if you're not the Titans, the 49ers, or the Ravens, your running backs aren't going to be averaging a lot of carries per game. We're just not that offense. So you want to sign Wayne Gallman back to take away carries from Saquon Barkley. Then you're going to complain after the game that Saquon Barkley didn't get enough carries. So that's a tough look.
I mean, if Gallman Nation had brains, they would be, they would understand that, but they don't.
Whoa, very mean. Hot dog.
No, we forgot. He said, how nice is it to have Isaac Adam? It's really
yes.
I'm not an expert cornerback play, but he's not an issue, which is really cool.
Yes.
Was worth the 7th round pick.
Hot dog at 0 hot dog 0. Why is Frank the Tank, this is a Knicks question, not in the GOAT convo? Like, he's a better defender than MJ and Braun combined, better passer than MJ, and has better handle than Braun. He must be talking about his son. In my opinion, this shouldn't be a debate. Frankie Smokes is the best athlete ever. Plus, the leadership of the French Prince is unmatched by any NBA player in any era ever. He rallies the Knicks to big, important wins all the time. I would also say Dennis Smith Jr. is also a part of this conversation. That was my note. That was my note at the end.
I'm not an anti-Knicks guy as a Nets fan. I'm just not. But I do observe. They're in the same state. I do observe the Knicks. I just have never understood the love for Frank. I just don't get it. Like, why do they? I don't get why Knicks fans love Frank so much. I think he's a decent piece, but Knicks fans will go to war for Frank. I don't get it. Like, I wouldn't do that for Karis LeVert. I think Karis LeVert's a nice piece, but I would never be like Karis LeVert should be an all-star. Like, he needs to like I'm fine with trading him. And Karis LeVert's way better. So I
wasn't Frank Phil Jackson's last pick?
Was he?
I think he was. I remember listening to the K show being, Phil Jackson drafted this guy to run the triangle offense, and then the Knicks fired him anyway.
Phil Jackson in that triangle offense, so stupid.
It's almost like Jason Garrett running 5-yard curls to the sticks all the time, wouldn't you say, Bobby?
Yeah, but Phil Jackson's 11-time NBA champ. Phil Jackson's a great coach. He didn't care about the Knicks job.
Just free money every year.
Let's see. When was he drafted? Yeah, I do. I actually think, he might have been his last draft pick.
Yeah. So people like Knicks fans, they hate Phil Jackson. They despise him, but they'll defend Frank. And I mean, I don't watch the Knicks, so Frank could be like a really underrated player that I don't really know, but it seems odd.
I like Frank, but it's just Knicks fans are they'll be talking about trading for a good player and can't trade Frank. It's like, yes, you can. You can. I promise you'll get over not having him on your team.
Is Frank the Evan Ingram of the Knicks?
No, because people don't like Evan Ingram. Frank is
that's true. Could be the Wayne Gallman, huh?
Frank is the Wayne Gallman of the Knicks. That's a good comparison. All right, that's an episode.
That's all we got.
All right, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back Friday for our preview show against the Browns. I'm so ready to fight the Browns. It sucks we didn't win. The biggest reason we think that sucks about not winning is I can't be cocky right now. If we win and be so cocky, we're gonna murder Baker Mayfield. Now I gotta wait till Thursday to do that. So, anyways, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday for our preview show. Until then, let's go Big Blue.